Moxley and Omega steel cage match. Before the match begins, they fight on the ramp, and Claudio and Yuta get involved, which prompt the Young Bucks to come out to a huge pop and super kick Claudio and Yuta. And Danielson is on commentary throughout this whole thing. He doesn't get involved physically. And Claudio then returns to attack, and Matt is throwing off the stage, and this is after Yuta had been tossed, and then Nick Jackson leaps off the stage onto the Blackpool Combat Club members, and the bell finally rings with the seconds taken to the back, and we get right into things with Moxley and Omega, and the best supporting barbed wire chair that was utilized to its fullest value on Wednesday night. This barbed wire chair took who knows how many like chunks of their backs with them. So early on, Omega like throws this chair at Moxley and hurts his hand on it, and then blasts Moxley in the back with the barbed wire chair. He's grinding it on the back, double foot stomp to the back, and dude, they do a close up of John Moxley, and it looks like some like rat or some cat. I was going with a rat, but it was like some wild cat just attacked John Moxley's back. That's what I was going for.
What kind of mice?
Bad.
What kind of mice do you have in your house that could do damage like that?
Hey, dude, there's some nasty rats out there.
Will it make you bleed like that?
You don't know. Okay. So Moxley. If you were guessing, it was about 2 minutes and 18 seconds that he was bleeding, but not just from the forehead. His back was bleeding too, so multiple wounds.
Yeah, although this week I think we could safely say he did not have the blade job of the week. You know what? Not even blade job. Color of the week, I should say.
No, he did.
Although Brock was last week, really.
Kind of, yeah. So Moxley gets control of the barbed wire chair. He starts using it, and dude, John Moxley lifts up Omega for a superplex. And when I say Kenny Omega took all of this on his back on this barbed wire chair, I mean all of it. There was no rolling to the side. There was no coming up short. He hit this thing as dead on as you could from the largest height that he could manage, save for them coming off the top of the cage. This was just brutal.
Maybe there's a level of cushioning in this barbed wire chair, that helped make it feel nice and comfy like a pillow.
Then during the picture-in-picture, Moxley unties the turnbuckle, and as we come back, the guy is fish hooking Omega with the turnbuckle.
Well, let me just say, like this turnbuckle was not an easy feat for Moxley to unscrew, because you could see it all on AEW Plus, of course, but he like had to struggle to get this thing done, and by the end of it, a lesser man certainly would have been already blown up just undoing this thing. But it was also important to note that AEW uses steel cables for the ropes and not just ropes like the WWE does. And so that probably made the tension that much more difficult to undo, and made some of these spots, I'm sure, that much more difficult to pull off, because I'm sure it added weight to it. You're trying to choke and bend these steel cables. So it may be a reminder that, hey, like the rings are different from AEW and WWE.
Well, he manages to get this turnbuckle into Omega's mouth, and they cut to Danielson smiling. He is loving this.
I just went to the dentist today, and my teeth were hurting just watching that.
Well, then he chokes Omega with the cable, and Omega fights him off, but gets drilled with a knee. So then Moxley brings out a bag, but it's not thumbtacks. He's got broken glass that he empties.
Which is a reference to one of their prior matches, I believe.
The Full Gear match, right?
Yeah.
And Moxley is lifted up on the shoulders, but then Moxley slides to the back for a choke, and Omega breaks it by dropping back, putting Moxley onto the glass. But Moxley returns with a choke moments later, and he's still on the glass. So Omega leans back for the pin. Moxley has to give up on it, and then he takes a V-trigger, which puts Moxley through the cage. It breaks as Kenny Omega flips over the rope and to the floor. I'm sure this was the idea that Paul White and Steve Austin had in '99.
I don't know if they could have pulled it off. Actually, Kenny got his foot trapped between the cage and the apron, which looked really scary.
Dr. Sampson come over and check on the knee, and it was a very unprepared fall. Like it just looked very awkward the way he came down with the knee buckling.
And obviously he finished the match, but man, like imagine losing Kenny right now as you're about to go into like this season of like huge events. He's the guy on the center of this all-in poster, man. Like it, again, makes you kind of assess these sort of risks with guys like having matches like this on TV. But God, I hope he's okay.
Danielson proclaims that Moxley is the toughest man alive. And then as the cage has been opened, Moxley goes ringside and gets the screwdriver. And he enters the ring, but then Don Callis runs in and rips the screwdriver away from Moxley. And this allows Omega to get to his feet and land a ripcord knee. He hoists up John Moxley and goes for the one-winged angel, hits it. But then as the referee is counting, Callis nails Kenny Omega with the screwdriver. And Omega is down. He is bloody from the screwdriver, and Moxley pins him in 14 minutes and 48 seconds. And
Danielson laughs as if like he expected it. Yeah.
They bled together.
Well, Kenny technically bled with them too. And he's not going to join. Yeah, maybe he's going to join.
This was like Callis's like skull was seen. So
true.
This was a different level. Okay.
And really that's all.
It was a meeting of the minds.
Yeah, that's all the justification they need, I suppose. A hell of a match, living up to the standard that these two have set. And I definitely like we all kind of look back at the exploding cage match as like a bit of a sort of like an embarrassing low point for AEW. But let's remember how good the rest of that match was before that power was supposed to go off. I mean, these two have always had tremendous chemistry doing this sort of match. This match was no different. Incredibly like a spectacle, really. Especially like getting this on free television with like seeing the ropes just and the cage exploding. Basically, well, you had a bit of a cage explosion, I guess, in the form of the wall collapsing, but visually it looked really impressive. And I'm sure maybe that was part of the thinking in booking a match like this for all the channel surfers that might be scrubbing through the various games. But tremendous use of the cage throughout, tremendous use of the ring ropes, just created this like really chaotic feeling throughout, and it ended with a very satisfying, significant storyline turn.
Yeah, and you have the throwback or the callback to Winter is Coming, which was their second match, and that was the night like Kenny and Callis like aligned together to screw Omega and win the title together. And you have this match where this is the two the breakup and following that with do we get Kenny Omega versus Don Callis?
When was Don Callis's last match?
He pinned Kenny Omega at a Winnipeg indie show.
I'm guessing no. But I mean, could he tag? Could he play like a Sanjay Dutt level type of like guy who might just tag and do a spot and then tag out? Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, this was I mean, for what it was, like this was a very violent, but in terms of like a violent spectacle, this was everything it was advertised to be, with a big angle at the end that I think people you could certainly, the way that the commentary was constantly bringing up too as well, like Don Callis considers Kenny Omega family. Like they were certainly like setting the table for it throughout the match. I thought they did a very good job calling the match as well. So I thought a really strong episode of Dynamite.
I did too. Yeah. And when you set out with a card like this, I mean, it's going to be hard for, these wrestlers to not deliver. This is a very strongly booked and a very strongly delivered and a strongly executed edition of Dynamite. So I hope for, NBA playoff competition every week. Wouldn't that be wonderful? If we
year-long playoffs?
Sure. Yeah. Just every game, every week, every Wednesday should be the Lakers versus the Warriors.